Tonight, we've invited Paula P. to come share her experience on the topic Came the Scoff and Remain to Pray for the next 45 minutes. After that, the meeting will be open for sharing back. Paula, we will give you a sign 10 minutes before the time's up. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on our meeting and share your experience. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks. I'm keeping my own time too, so however you want to do it, it's fine with me. Paula Parton, alcoholic, man. I got friends coming in. Hey, friends. My sobriety date is October 29th, 1979. I took my first drink when I was 14 years old, and a little over 3 years later, I took what I didn't know at the time would be my last drink. And I haven't met anybody yet who took their last drink who knew that's what that was. But something happened, man, to every one of us if we're on here, because I'm an addict too, man. We took our last drug, we took our last drink, whatever it was that you did. I've never met anybody who said, I'll do this and then I'm done. Because we said that almost every freaking time, except for this last time, something happened. And I wasn't going to open with this because I've been opening with it for a long time, but I'm trying to listen to God. So I am going to do it. It's out of the big book. It's in Bill's story. And this setting the scene, Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, had been trying to get sober, couldn't do it, kept falling off the wagon, as they called it. The doctor at the drying out place, Dr. Silkworth had, tried really hard and was still willing to try, but, Bill couldn't do it. And Bill was now back at his house drinking. And he got a strange phone call from his old friend, Ebby. And Ebby told him the weirdest thing. Ebby told Bill that Ebby had stopped drinking. And Bill and Ebby had many, many drunk experiences together. And Bill was like, okay, that's odd, but so what? Come on over. Yeah, come on over. Because Bill thought, well, at least I'll get drunk and then we'll relive our old glory days. So that's the scene. Bill sitting at his table. And this is what later Bill Wilson wrote in his story. Here's what he wrote. The door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? Now, if Bill could go back and change the small s in the word something to a capital S, he would be able to answer his very own question about what had happened to Ebby. And we've all had, or at least I know that I have had that something that it was inexplicable. I gotta say, it remains inexplicable because how do we have a language in the third dimension for things happening and occurring in the fourth dimension? We just know and we see. And when I picked up my first drink, I'm here like you guys are here. You know what happened next. There's no, unusual thing in me that happened to every one of you when you first took your first drink or drug or whatever it was. Man, all of a sudden I could look the world in the eyes. All of a sudden I intuitively knew how to handle situations. All of a sudden I was rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence because alcohol promised me everything that Alcoholics Anonymous delivered on. And alcoholism is a disease. Medically, it's considered one of the great diseases, not great as in wonderful, great as in pervasive, deadly, and mysterious. And it exists for one reason, like all the other great diseases. Cancer is probably its closest comparison. Great diseases exist for one reason: to kill their host. Alcoholism is just smarter and evolved better, that's all, than the other ones. Because what it keeps telling us is that feeling you got the first time, Paula, this one will do it. This next one will do it. This next one will do it. And my mom had just gotten sober when I started drinking, man, and she'd been a hard drunk, man, like vodka in her coffee in the morning so her hands didn't shake. And I wanted to save her. I always wanted to save her as a little girl. And then I found alcohol, man, and that golden demon had me, and I was enraged. I was enraged and baffled and always fighting. And because, after what goes down in alcoholic homes sometimes. My mom let men in the house who shouldn't be around little girls, and she was drunk and she didn't save me. And that's sometimes how it happens. Now, that has nothing to do with me being an alcoholic. I'm just saying that's why I was so angry. I had like an organ. I could feel the organ of hate and self-pity and terminal, as in deadly uniqueness. Anything alcohol would talk me into. So it would be a wall between me and you, between me and the something with a capital S. And I was started to be court mandated. The judge made me go to AA meetings as a condition of my probation. I'd become a ward of the state of Nebraska in the U.S. and institutions, and baffled and enraged. I mean, that's how you can sum up my drinking and using time, man. But I do remember. I mean, I do remember my first meeting, and I wasn't all the way sober. I was 14 years old and had to go down to the basement of this nasty building in the middle of Nebraska, imagine. And this was 1976. So there were not 14-year-olds in meetings in Nebraska in 1976. A small, tiny town. So everybody knew my mom in AA. They loved her. They knew the stuff I was doing to her. I tried to kill her, worried her actually sick, worried her sick. And I was going down to my first meeting, man. I was 14, like I said, and I knew those people were going to come for me. I knew it because they love my mom. So I'll never forget it. It's like I'm standing there now. I don't know how the neurons of memory fire off this way. I guess it was my first something. It was my first something. And I wasn't even sober. Please hear that. I walked down those basement stairs, and I'm at the bottom of the stairs, and I see the guy across the room who I knew was really going to come for me. He was bent over and he was talking to somebody, and he turned his head and he saw me, and I'm bracing up, ready for the fight. And he stands up and he puts his hand out and he crosses that entire room to greet me. Like I was the person or something. And I had to go to meetings for the next 3 years. And I don't remember a word that was said in 3 years of having to go to AA meetings. But when I was 17 and had to say my first sacred, maybe, maybe even for me, maybe there's a shot, maybe even for me, which was what my first step looked like. I didn't remember a word that was said in those 3 years of meetings, but I remember how they had made me feel. So let's do that. My oldest son is 33. When he was 31, he called me because he has a mental health disorder as well, like extraordinary anxiety. He's had it since he was tiny in diapers, really. And when he was 3, he started showing the first signs. But he drinks like we drank, but harder. I don't, I'm not ever, I'm sober 46 years, and I've not ever heard of one guy who drank as hard as my son did. But my son called me almost a year and a half ago. He said, Mom, my anxiety is off the charts. Can you come and can we figure out if I have any insurance that'll help me get to a doctor? I said, yeah, come on. And you know why that boy called me? Even though he knows I'm an AA, he was raised on nothing but a house full of laughing or crying AA women. And, he tried it once before and he thought we were a cult. You know how that goes. He called How It Works our manifesto. Anyway, and I just kept saying, that might work for you. That might work for you. But so why he was able to pick up the phone and call me for help is because I left the bookmark, man. I left the easy, clear bridge back to anything he might want. Because for 10 years, I've talked about nothing to that boy but Netflix. That's what we've talked about for a decade. As he's standing in front of me, shaking, hardly able to come over for Thanksgiving. He can't stand it. I cooked for 2 days. He could stand there for 10 minutes and then lie about having to leave. And I'm just so grateful for those 10 minutes because I could continue to leave the clear and easy bookmark. Clear and easy back to me. Because I am telling you what, if that boy, at the moment that boy ever was desperate and willing at the same time, it would not be on me to have been the one to burn the bridge. Never. And that is my attitude with anyone who might need help in Alcoholics Anonymous, sober or drunk. It will not be me who burned that bridge. Clear and bright, man. And I tell you this, that I will never be done, and I've said it for decades now, I'll never be done paying back my debt to Alcoholics Anonymous. And now, man, you guys have saved my son. You own me. You name it, it's a big fat happy yes from me. But my son called that day about a year and a half ago. We went to the medical clinic, and he was 31, like I said, and he they took his blood pressure and it was 188 over 115. So he was close to stroking out. They put him in the ER. They said, "You're going straight to the hospital." He's in the emergency room. The doctor came up to him. My son didn't smell like alcohol. He wasn't drunk. He later told me his last drink had been 7 hours before that. But the ER doctor walked up to him, and for some reason, she asked him, "How much do you drink?" And for some reason, he told her the truth, which was 12 to 14 shots of vodka every night till he blacked out. She said, "Chris, this is not anxiety. You're in alcoholic withdrawal." Now look at the physical progression, you guys. Just 7 hours from his last drink. And a 31-year-old healthy, otherwise male. That's the progression of alcoholism. 7 hours, and he's in that hard of a withdrawal. So they put him in the intensive care unit in a padded bed with 5 nurses on him on phenobarbital, and then the hallucinations began. And I sat with my baby boy, my beautiful boy, through that, and I just kept talking about Netflix. And if he asked me anything about AA, I'd answer it. And if he, disagreed with anything, I'd say that might work for you. You could be right. That might work for you. But I'm telling you, he was so willing and desperate. He came so close to dying. He didn't argue a thing. His willingness never wavered. So he got out of there after 4 or 5 nights, and there was a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, which is about 4 hours from me, that gets guys clean, hard guys, man, right off the streets. And so we drove him down there, and we went back to visit him a week later. And the only way to visit the guys in that stage of being in that homeless shelter is to sit with them in the open meeting. So we go in the room with the open meeting, and my son, who's been raised in a pretty little university town with university parents, and like all his little homecoming king best friend. I mean, that's how he was. So he's now in a homeless shelter in Louisville, and he walks up to me. He says, "Mom, did you know this is a homeless shelter?" I'm like, "Honey, you're homeless." And he's like, "They want me to stay for the 9-month program. I'm staying for the 45-day program. There's some hard ass guys in here. I got to get out of here. I'm only going to be here 45 days." And if you're a mama or someone who's loved someone who's on the edge of dying from alcoholism, my insides were like, "Oh no." But I said, "That might work for you." So we sit down for the meeting, and the guy talking was a guy who graduated from that program. I mean, he was multiple prisons, hard ass drug addict and alcoholic, gang. He's big in a gang in the South, and he'd gotten clean through that same homeless shelter 2 years before. Now that man didn't have a thing in common with my son except for the effect alcohol had on them. So this guy gets done talking. My son turns to me and he says, "Mom, I'm going to stay for the 9-month program. Will you bring me winter clothes?" Because my son saw something, and it stuck. Something about that guy left the bookmark my son needed. Now, let me tell you this. That wasn't on my bingo card. Some homeless gang felon speaking the language of the heart to my son. But what do I know? That's the realm of the 4th dimension. That's not my realm. I just do the work. I'm in charge of the work and the willingness. God's in charge of time and results. few months after my son was in that program, I went to see him again, and he walked in, and he just looked so good. Remember how we get well physically faster than anything else, and he just looked so good, and settled and happy. And he walked in. I said, "Oh, honey, you look so handsome." And I was joking when I said, "It looks like you got taller too." And he wasn't joking when he said, "I know. I think I got taller too." But what was happening is that one of the fifth step promises came true for him. He could look the world in the eyes. He'd never looked up before. And he could finally walk in, man, like he was a person or something. When I got to you, man, I hated God. I felt I had proof there either wasn't a God, or that was the meanest, son of a what there ever was, that's a God who makes bad things happen, who wants bad things to happen, who abandoned me when I called for help when I was a little girl to make it stop. And when I came to or woke up the next day and it hadn't stopped, my first words, I was 8 years old. Again, I don't know how, it's like I'm there now. My first words were, "I hate you." But here's what I know. Here's what I know now, that my God never abandoned me. My higher power was with me the night as an 8-year-old girl I was calling for help for the dark things to stop. My God was with me that night and every night. My higher power was crying too. And my God was not saying, "You are trash. You are nothing to me." My God was saying, "Hold on, daughter. I am sending Alcoholics Anonymous." And from that time, it was just 6 years later that I came down the steps of that little tiny clubhouse in the middle of Nebraska, and that man across the room showed me something that stuck, left a bookmark for me, a light in the dark tunnel. I was incarcerated a lot. I was on probation still for almost the first 2 years of my sobriety, till the state of Nebraska decided that I could be in charge of my own custody as an adult. The first group home, the only group home I went to, I was 15. I was just causing all kind of trouble, hot on drugs, hot on alcohol, hating everyone, fighting. I was starting to beat up on weak people to see if it made me feel something. I'd lost my mind. And I remember getting out of that group home and I wanted to be good. I remember that's what I could say. I want to be good. I want to be good. But I wasn't, and I'm not going to drink and I'm not going to do drugs anymore. And I meant it, man. I meant it at 15 years old. And I made it for 3 weeks. And I went out with some friends and they handed me a bottle of schnapps and I drank it all. And it was the first time in all my drinking before that night and after that night that I finally told the truth. I said the truth 2 times. I went in the bathroom. My friends were in there. I was just throwing up my guts. And what I said was, "Do you think God forgives me?" The God I didn't believe in, remember? The God I hated, remember? And my friends drove me home, and I got home, and I threw myself in my mom's arms, and I said the second piece of truth that I had ever said in my drinking years. And the truth, what I said to her was this: "I don't know what happened. I meant to not drink." And then I was a felon. I had a felony charge over me, and they gave me a choice of jail until sentencing or treatment. And I sat there for 20 minutes trying to decide, what does one do? And here's what happened in that 20 minutes. The first minute, I was inventorying what's a lie I haven't told yet, fresh out, couldn't think of one. And then the next 19 minutes were this. At 17 years old, I was trying to understand how do you live and not drink? Unfathomable, inexplicable. But I got taken to some place in Iowa, and that's where I got sober. I'm so grateful. That was 1979, and there's still people there who knew me on my first day of sobriety. How about that, man? How beautiful is that? One of them, I just went up to help him celebrate his 50th sobriety anniversary. I mean, how lucky am I, man? But I was a mess. I came to you with actual brain damage. I ran out of gas 11 times in my first year of sobriety. 11 freaking times, man. Because I kept looking at the gas gauge and thinking, I can make it one more block. 11 times. God. AA was this place of safety and light, and I didn't know it at the time, but now I know the word that I saw and felt was hope. I had never seen it. I'd never felt it. I didn't know there was such a thing. You allowed me a seat at your banquet. And of course, I'm going to come all the way in for that. It was, guys were honorable. People told the truth. But I still hated God, man. And I'd come into meetings late on purpose and gossip about everybody and just full of hate and conflict and uniqueness. And what I'd say is, if what had happened to me had happened to you, you'd rage too. And they'd say insulting things like, just let it go. Like, if you just said just, we're heading outside. Could you just take care of that problem? Like my story was harder. Mine was worse. That's alcoholism again saying, no, don't look to the light. Don't look to the light. I still want you to die. I still want you. But I could hear you, man, even though I was so angry and didn't think it was quite me, just didn't know, man. I could hear you. I could hear you when you said deep inside. Every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And I'd hear you say it, and I'd think, oh, but not for me. God had done me wrong. But because and only because you were honorable, I could at least believe that you believed, and that was enough. The first time I did a second step was the first way I did my first step with a sacred maybe. Because I could see you, man, and I could see when you stopped spouting the beautiful stuff that you spouted or quoting the big book at people or all that stuff, and the hour was over. You acted the way you talked. Best 12-step work, most valuable 12-step work we will ever do is how we live our lives the other 23 hours of the day that we're not in a meeting. That is the most powerful 12-step work. Because I was one of those weirdos, man, savage, feral. This is just going to be another place. There's no place for me. There's no place for me. Man, but I could see you. So kind. So they let me chair a meeting once when I was about 2 years sober. What the hell were they thinking? So I chaired it on the science fiction book I had just read. I thought I was going to change the annals of Alcoholics Anonymous, like, or make it like cooler for young people, or just ridiculous. And they came up to me afterwards and they patted me on the back. They said, "Keep coming back." And I swear to God, I thought it's because I just chaired one hell of a meeting and they wanted some more of that. Like craziness. But you kept being kind to me, kept leaving that bookmark, man. I went to my father appeared back in my life. He offered to pay for me to go to university. And so I found a tiny little school that would take horrible students like me who had such a low testing scores. And amazing things happened in the nick of time, man, in the nick of time. Because I was 5 years sober, almost 5 years sober when I moved to that little town to go to college. And I hadn't read the big book because I thought it was for you older people. I was going to write my own version for young, cool people with tattooed big toes. And I couldn't get a sponsor because I couldn't find anyone smarter than me. That was my actual logic. But at almost 5 years sober, man, here's the gig, man. I love the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Our own literature says that the fellowship is a sufficient substitute for alcohol, and it is. And it's why I was able to stay and make it and keep trying and keep trying and keep saying a sacred maybe. But the fellowship is not a sufficient substitute for alcoholism. That only comes through the formula of the 12 steps and the beautiful places that formula takes us, the beautiful continuing light that that formula provides for us. In that little small town, I graduated when I was 8 years sober with my college degree, and had fallen in love with the big book, had gotten a sponsor who took me through the big book, had to sit in meetings with only old ranchers and old farmers and old railroad men. So I knew I needed to not be talking about my inner child in AA meetings anymore. That was not, or Chad the astronaut. That was not going to work. And those old guys were not having it. So I learned how to be, man, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I still had that organ of hate. And by reading the big book, Honorable, you had told me there was a shot at freedom, even for me. And it was to be found in the fourth step, and particularly in the fourth column of the fourth step. Because here's how it works. Think of it like you're in a court of law and you are sitting at the prosecution table, and you are the first three columns of the grudge list in the fourth step. You are making your case to those people, institutions, and principals who had done you so wrong. And you're sitting at the prosecution table, man, and you've made a hell of a case. And you rest your case, and then you got to go to the fourth column. And in that court of law, you've rested your case at columns 1, 2, and 3, but then you stand up, you walk over to the defense table, and you sit down and you begin the defense of those very same people you had just finished prosecuting. Because I am the one who needs freedom. I cannot have that organ of hate anymore. I can see the light just beyond the hill, man, because you showed it to me. I could even feel that you felt there was something with a capital S, and maybe even me, man. And so I began the real work of Alcoholics Anonymous. I began to really jump into Alcoholics Anonymous, to the recovery. We cannot recover on 11 and a half steps. We can't do it. It all has to be done and get better at. I mean, I know people on here, same as me, man. We're always searching. It's the greatest journey there is. AA is the best show in town, man. Stuff happens here you cannot write about, you don't know about. My friend Pat, with 32 years of sobriety, he lived in that little college town when I had about 5 years of sobriety. He was a great man. And he and his wife Bess would take me and my little sober friend around to tiny little town, Nebraska meetings. And Pat was sober so long he worked out of a second edition. And I'm a historian. I have my master's degree in history, and one of my specializations was World War II. And an interesting thing about Pat way back then is he had been a soldier during World War II. And so he would tell me, and only me, horror stories of things he had seen as a 17, 18-year-old soldier making his way across the Western Front. Horror stories, things that are burned in my brain. But he'd end every story with this. He'd say, "But Paula, there's one thing I will never tell." And what the hell what? There's more you saw you're not going to say. And the other thing about Pat is he'd gotten in a little fight with the little local AA clubhouse manager, and he could tell you in detail what that guy had done. So he had a resentment. So me and my little sober friend, I have 10 minutes more on my clock than you have. Do I have 45 minutes or 35 minutes?
45.
Huh. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna turn mine off then. So me and my little friend graduated. We moved to the East Coast. We had a call a year later that Pat, with 32 years of sobriety, had started drinking. He was dead in a year. And I put down the phone and I turned to my friend. I said, "Pat is drinking." She said, "You know what it was? It was that resentment." I said, "You know what it was? It was that secret." And so now, like I said, I have my graduate degree in history, and I will tell you this, that there was research released to us that I wish I had not read. That there were firsthand accounts that I had to go through that I wish I did not know. And I was always looking for the thing that Pat would not say. And now I know. I'd bet every dollar that I have, and I would win the bet, that the thing that Pat would not say is not something that he saw. It was something that he did. And the shame and the hate and the secret took 32 years to kill such a man. If you think you can withhold, if you think you're unable to tell that one horrible thing, you can hack it out this much longer, you've held it in this long. If you think you don't have to fully disclose, I am promising you right now, if it took that man down, you do not stand a chance. Here is the promise of telling your secret. It looks like math. Yes, you tell your secret, and in that equation, you get to earn freedom. That is true, and that's not the point. The point of telling your secret is this: your secret will save a life, guaranteed. Think of all the people Pat could have helped in 32 years, man. Your pain almost killed you. You know now that I understand. Do not just waste it. Take it to the something of the universe with a capital S, a capital U, or you decide. Take it through the formula. I have a severe math disability. It's got a long name, but what it looks like in real time is I can't function past a third grade level of math. What it looks like in real time is when I'm getting onto an airplane and I look down at what seat I have. If I go 3 or 4 steps, I've forgotten the number and I have to look at it again. That's what my math disability looks like. But I can recognize the beauty of math, the fact of math, the mysterious something of math. And there's some magic math going on here, man. We take our own dark past, turn it to the light. It becomes life-saving measures. The point here, if you think you got sober and clean for happiness, joyousness, and freedom, you're in the wrong place. The point here is service. Happy, joyous, and free is a beautiful after effect, but it ain't that important. Service, service, that's what's important. My questions I ask myself are these. Does whatever it is I want to do or not want to do, does it fulfill my primary purpose, which is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety? My other question is God everything? If God is everything, then my next move is pretty clear, whatever that needs to be. And the last and most beautiful question is this. I changed through working the formula of this program. The whole question of my life, which was, what about me, changed to this. How can I help? And that changed everything. That gave me more freedom than anything. I no longer need people to like me. I don't act in a way so people will have a reputation or a thought about me. It's not important to me if people will talk about me or say bad things. I got one best friend. It's God. Everybody else, how can I help? That's how I roll now, man. And though I'd done many fourth steps, man, I couldn't quite get rid of the organ, of the hate of my mom and what she let those men do and these things. And I'd made progress, progress, but enough of an outside thing and the doom of the dark would hit or the rage of the overreaction. And I wanted to be free. But the whole motto, I think, of my sobriety anyway, is you never know. I have a big life in AA. I got a big life outside of AA, and I'm paying attention because you do not know when that bookmark's going to come or the freedom or the light is going to shine, man, and I better be clean and ready. I better not have some stupid little conflict in the way or some stupid little envy or jealousy. There's beautiful work to do in 10, 11, and 12 every day that cleans that stuff up, and I get to grow every day. Well, after I moved to the East Coast, I was 13 years sober, and I met a man on the AA campus. So unique. He was my first husband. I have a second one now, but we've been together 28 years, me and St. Richard. But so I was with my first husband, 13 years sober, and we were going in to deliver our first baby, and it wasn't going well. I was in labor for 36 hours, and the baby was stuck in the birth canal. I was on no medication, nothing, not pain reliever, nothing. And I'd lost a lot of blood, and the room emptied of, the cord was wrapped around my baby's neck, and they didn't know it. So with every contraction, the cord was tightening on him. And the room emptied of the normal doctor and the normal nurses and the normal equipment and filled with the specialists. And At that time, I looked to this side of my bed, and walking up to my bed was my grandmother, who had died 10 years before, and my friend Craig, who had died of AIDS just 5 months before. And like I said before, trying to find a word in the third dimension to describe a fourth dimension, because I've tried so hard to find a word to describe them, and I can't. There's not, of course, there's not a word. It's so beautiful, and because the veil had dropped, I could be with them, and I knew they'd been there all the time. It was that close all the time. God was there all the time, that close. And as I'm looking at the new nurse came on and she said, "Paul, I'm going to get you through this." And so when I turned to look at her and I looked back, my grandmother and Craig were gone, and she did get me through it, and I delivered my son. And the room went silent for a long time while they worked on him. And finally, they got him breathing, and he was going to make it. He was weak, and he was going to have to stay in the hospital for a while. But for just a second before they took him away in the special equipment, they let me hold my son. And I looked down on him and I saw that he was perfect and beautiful. And then, for no reason, out of nowhere, my very next thought were of the men who had hurt me when I was a little girl. And I realized for the first time that they had been perfect and beautiful too. And someone else had turned them to monsters. And who better than me anyway, to have compassion for what must have been done to those beautiful baby boys, that there had been the day also of their birth, when the doctor placed them in their mother's arms, and she, exactly like me, had looked down on them and meant with everything she had to keep them safe and to love them. But the monster and the liquid demon got in and broke those babies, man. And I had compassion, and it was in compassion where I was set free. I'm still learning this lesson, because I'd rather fight than anything. Still, if I don't meditate by the time I leave the house, swear to God, 46 years sober, if I don't meditate by the time I leave the house, driving and line standing are competitive sports, and I'm winning it. And it's not fight or flight for me, it's fight or die. It's crazy. I have to have meditation. I have to. I owe it to not just me, to the world too. Because I'm burning the bridge, man. What if I have an AA sticker on my car and I'm a jerk in traffic? I just burned the bridge. No, no, I cannot have it. I won't do it. I won't burn the bridge. I had a sponsee a long time ago in a whole other city, and she had three little girls, and I didn't start sponsoring her till she got out of treatment and came to my home group and asked me. But what I found out, she was married with those three little girls, and when she was in that treatment center, which she'd come in on a serious suicide attempt, she'd had a fling with one of the guys in the treatment center, and she hated herself, just hated herself for it. She hated the ground she walked on. You guys ever try to help somebody like that? So that was her, and I just, took her through the formula and loved her. Pretty easy combination, really, and the example of my own life. And so a few years down the road, she divorced that husband that she'd been with, and she was a single parent to these three little girls, and she was now in love with another man, a new man, and they were going to get married. And then she found out that he'd been screwing around on her the whole time. And she called me, and she's just bereft. She told me what that guy had done, and I'm furious. I'm like, how could he do that to you? You're amazing. And I'm so mad. And she says to me, I did the same thing. I said, it is not the same thing. And she said, yes, it is. And I had to stop and inventory what is up with my different reaction to him and to her for doing the exact same action. And I realized that the only difference was love. And so I made up my decision there, that I asked myself, what if I loved him? What of anybody doing something that I don't know and see from afar, like in the news or something, or that I do know, or that's hurt somebody, or anything that I don't like, I ask myself, What if I loved them? How would I think then? I'd give them the moon. I'd allow them all the space to find their way through. So now that's what I ask myself. Well, hold on with that. What if I loved them? Then what would I say? I just don't do this work in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I said, I got a big life out there. I love my life, and I'm a servant to my community. I'm a good citizen, and in my little town, there's a huge group home complex for kids who've been taken away from their parents who have not done the right thing. And one of my sponsees told me that one of her sponsees in the group home, who was 16 years old and had been taken from her mother because her mother was not being a good mom, was being an abusive mom, that my 16-year-old grand sponsee was going to be in a little band performance at the high school. And I said to my sponsee, what time? She goes, now. I said, get in the car. We got to go. We're going to be late. Because until I was probably 35 years sober when this happened. And until my sponsee told me that my little grand sponsee was going to be all by herself in a little band performance, I did not remember that that had been my story too. It had never shown up on an inventory in a talk with a friend or a therapist or anything that I was a little girl at those band performances, those chorus performances, and no one was there to watch me either. I'm not saying I don't have any emotion about it, but isn't that amazing how God is in charge of time? God did not need me to remember that to work it through. I had not even had a clue that that had happened until that 16-year-old girl required that part of my dark past. So me and my sponsor are racing to get there. We jump in the car, we go to the high school, and when we come in the big risers, which are up, which is where the people sit, and then down on the band floor, I could see the back of my grand sponsee because we'd come in the wrong door. And it was almost time to start. And if I could just get us to the far end of the risers and get my grand sponsee to look up, she'd see us and she'd know, man, look at the math. Look at the freaking math in the whole universe. Who would have had that bizarre and unique experience and the guts and rudeness to try to make it through? So 50 grown-up people are in our way between us and where we need to be. And my sponsee says, do you think we can make it? I said, hold my latte. And so I'm like going through these people, I'm pushing them aside and I'm saying I'm sorry, but I am not sorry. And I get to the end and the conductor's already picked up his baton and I yell out my grand sponsee's name. And she looks up and she sees us and her face, man, her face, I mean, many times in this formula of recovery and how the light shines, how the universe or this something is, and that crazy math, the grand algebraic equation, and the physics of God. I've wondered, what if in our words that say pain was the touchstone of all progress, the price of admission was pain? What if my pain is the price of someone else's admission? Would I pay? Yes, I would pay. Her face, I'd pay. So would you. So are you. I'm just going to say a couple more things and I'll end. So, when I was 4 years sober, my sister and I decided to drive my really crappy college car all the way from Nebraska, which is in the middle of the states, all the way to Washington, D.C., which is on the East Coast. It's a little over 1,000 miles. And 2 days before Christmas Eve. So across the Great Plains in a bad car in 0-degree weather. And we had my little baby niece with us. And my sister loves shortcuts. So now it's 1 day before Christmas Eve. And we're somewhere in Iowa, and there's no lines on the road, there's no signs, there's no lights anywhere, and my engine just dies. 0-degree weather, and we're in some danger. So the stupid plan was I was going to get out of the car and guess which way to walk for help. And just at that moment comes these two headlights, and it was a farmer, and he fixed my engine with duct tape and a wire coat hanger. And so he got it running. Now it's 1 day before Christmas Eve, and he's about to go. We're like, stop. We want to pay you. He goes, no, no. We're like, stop. You saved our lives. We want to pay you. And he said, take it as a present from him. my first, second step also came the way many of ours has. I was in an institution, I was in a halfway house, and I went to my counselor and I said, okay, if there's a God, why did all those bad things happen to me when I was a little girl? And she said, oh, baby, God didn't make those things happen. God doesn't give us tests and lessons. Broken human will made those things happen. But now God has given you Alcoholics Anonymous to try to help you mend those things. So if you are here and you think there was something wrong with you that's not wrong with the rest of us, if you have a dark secret in your dark past that think you cannot fully disclose, or else, if there's something, if you have outside issues in addition to your addiction, me too. I have tics to this day because of my own anxiety disorder. Oh well, it doesn't stop me from doing a damn thing. Nobody dying in the rooms cares if I'm ticking it, come to find out. So I'm just asking you to do this. Just say maybe and take it as a present from him. Thank you.